earn certifications in humanistic neurolinguistic psychology and therapeutic coaching, as well as certification as an intrinsic coach. Cheryl is also an experienced and credentialed yoga teacher. She brings more than 20 years of experience guiding individuals and groups toward better health. Cheryl, take it away.
Thank you, Lisa. Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. Today's agenda is here, and we'll explore 5 things: what well-being is and why it matters, the important role of thinking and the influence on your well-being, the role of coaching. We'll also explore details on Can-Do health coaching and how it can support you in your well-being journey. And lastly, we'll review some benefits and results from completing Can-Do health coaching. Next, with that, let's start with exploring the idea of well-being. 2 leading researchers from the Gallup organization teamed up a couple of years ago and did research in 150 countries. What they found is that there are 5 universal elements of well-being. First, career well-being is liking what you do each day and having meaning and purpose in your work. Next is social well-being, which is having good, strong relationships in your life and love in your life. Third is financial well-being, which is more about managing your economic life with a sense of security rather than wealth. Physical well-being is about having enough energy, both physically and mentally, to get the things done each day that are important to you. And then lastly, community well-being is feeling connected to the community in which you live. Further, this same research showed that each of these areas is interrelated, meaning that we can't focus on one area without it impacting another area. Yet the typical approach to well-being is flawed, thinking that we can just isolate and focus on one area in our lives, and then we wonder why we get frustrated and things don't last. So if we're struggling in any one of these domains, as most of us are, it damages our well-being and wears on our daily life. However, when we strengthen our well-being in any of these areas, we will have better days, months, and decades. But we're not getting the most out of our lives unless we're living effectively in all 5. So today I invite you to think about how you're doing in each area of well-being. That well-being research is not alone. A few years ago, Dan Buettner, who is a local guy here from Minnesota, teamed up with National Geographic and longevity researchers to identify pockets around the world where people lived measurably better. In these blue zones, they found that people reach age 100 at rates 10 times greater than in the United States. After identifying the world's blue zones, Dan and National Geographic took teams of scientists to each location to identify lifestyle characteristics that might explain this longevity. What they found is that the lifestyles of all Blue Zones residents shared 9 specific characteristics. They call these the Power 9 principles. We don't have time to go into them with detail today, but in general, these are common sense, holistic lifestyle practices that recognize the importance of social connectedness, moving our bodies naturally, eating smaller nourishments more frequently, and with a diet primarily plant-based, and knowing and living your purpose. Further along the lines on how the elements of well-being interact with each other is the relationship of our work-world side with our self side. So let's imagine that these 2 figures represent 3-tiered wedding cakes. At the top of each cake are the outcomes that you're wanting to achieve in life, that your organizations are wanting to achieve, and so on. There are 2 parts of ourselves that contribute to our individual and to your organization's outcomes, the work side and the self side. If your mission was to get the cake in one piece to $1 million wedding, which cake would you ultimately want to be responsible for? My guess is you just picked figure A. Why? because it is more stable and has a better base. And notice what that base is, self-side. Yet we are so conditioned in this country to sacrifice ourselves at any cost, thinking we are helping. We will sacrifice sleep, our own exercise, hobbies, our children's events, and much more to work more hours, to do things for others, etc. We think we are doing good, but how long can you continue like figure B before you run out of energy and your cake basically topples over? You probably won't be having a long, thriving life like people living in blue zones either. So your self side, your well-being matters. And if you keep depleting yourself, you won't have the energy to enjoy the people and the things that matter to you in your life. So if we think about well-being in terms of energy, think about how you're showing up, both mentally and physically. Every choice we make and our mindset determines the amount of energy we have available to us to put towards what matters most in our lives. Is your energy depleted so you're showing up like George Costanza here from Seinfeld, a curmudgeon who just wants to get a nap? Or are you full of energy, showing up, loving life, having a positive effect on those around you? Wardrobe choice set aside here. All right. With that said, I invite you to take a moment and close your eyes. Now, think about what your best possible future looks like for you, considering all the areas of well-being. What types of things are you doing? Who are you spending your time with? And what do those interactions look like? How are you feeling? And perhaps most importantly, who are you being? All right, now that we have a framework on the importance of total well-being, let's look at the important role our thinking plays on our well-being and how that influences the best possible future you just imagined. So, starting in the upper left quadrant, how we see things, our attitude, our perceptions, influences how we feel about it. How we feel about it influences our behavior or what we do. What we do gets us something or results in something. And what we get ultimately reinforces how we see things. For example, seeing a tiger in the woods. We feel afraid, we run, versus seeing Tony the Tiger cardboard cutout, we might feel confused or amused and maybe laugh. Both are relevant. Totally different based on how we see the situation. The point here is that our typical approach is to jump to the do and to change behaviors. But behaviors are really a manifestation of our underlying thinking. So unless we focus on building a solid foundation, the base of the wedding cake, by looking at how we see things and shifting our perspective, we will continue to fall back on the negative habitual behaviors we no longer want. Lasting change doesn't come from simply doing things differently. It comes from seeing or thinking about things differently. And usually when we're struggling, it's because we've jumped to the do. When we can back up and pause and look at seeing differently, usually the do will come and will make more sense and align with our purpose or what we're wanting for ourselves in terms of that best possible future we just imagined. With that in mind, let's look at how we see things. Every moment of every day, we are basically at this starting point where our thinking can go down one of two paths. In other words, our frame can see a tiger or a cutout of a cardboard tiger based on which path we choose. The first automatic path is the judger path and leads us to an inherent need to be right and therefore more blame-focused, blaming ourselves, like, why did I eat that? why didn't I do X, Y, Z? Or blaming others or our circumstances. If we stay on this path too long, we end up in the stinkin' thinkin' pit of doom. This path is very problem-focused, it's very automatic and reactive, and tends to be very win-lose, all or nothing focused. The other path we can go on with our thinking is more thoughtful, choiceful, and intentional. It's the path of the learner, where we have an almost childlike curiosity about ourselves, others, and the world around us. On this path, we recognize there is far more than just what we see or what is apparent to us. When we are on the learner path, we are more solution-focused, thoughtful, and win-win. The beauty is that if we can recognize when we are on the judger path, we can get off by simply asking the learner questions. All right. Let's look at this another way. How I see things can be framed in terms of what's known as the line. When I'm above the line in my thinking, I tend to be more positive, optimistic, feel like I'm in the driver's seat in life, have more energy, and so forth. Yet when I'm below the line, I tend to be more negative, pessimistic, low in energy, and feel like a victim of circumstances. So another way to think of this is that below the line is more judger path thinking, or when your thinking isn't serving you well. And above the line is more learner path thinking, when your thinking is serving you well for what matters to you. For example, I know that when my thinking is below the line, my significant other looks looks like an annoyance, leaving socks around, things like that. And yet, when I'm above the line, he looks like very fun and very self-motivated and interesting, somebody who I want to be around. He hasn't changed. It's my path of thinking has changed and where it's at that time. When we go below the line, we know that there are things that can act as a trampoline and spring us back above the line, such as watching a funny video clip, listening to a favorite song, talking to someone who's uplifting to us, or maybe even taking a short walk. So that's the line. Next, in keeping the frame that we just reviewed and the line in mind, what is it that allows some people to thrive in life while others struggle? Well, research has found that the top 20% of people, those who are thriving in life, are more on the learner path and recognize when they're not and get themselves back on the learner path. It's not that their thinking never goes below the line or on the judger path. The difference is that they recognize when this happens. The bottom 80% of people don't recognize when their thinking is and isn't serving them and continue to focus on doing differently without being differently. And with that said, it's very easy for our stubborn, habitual thinking to lead us to being stuck in a rut. So we have to be curious and have, again, that childlike mindset, since as human beings we are programmed for continuous growth and learning. But again, we are also tremendous creatures of habit. However, just because we've always done something in a certain way doesn't mean it makes sense for us today. So I invite you to ask yourself if your habits are serving you. If they're not working, it's time to change them. As the quote goes, the difference between a rut and a grave is the depth of excavation. In thinking about breaking out of ruts and making life changes, it's important to be reminded of basics of human development. For example, think about a child learning to walk. It takes, on average, about 12 months. Think about learning to ride a bike, learning a new language, learning algebra. You can't listen to a 1-hour webinar, attend a 1 or 2 day intensive workshop, and expect to learn any new skill that will stick. So why do we think changing habits and lifestyles is any different? Bear with me for a moment as I use this example of a baby learning to walk to illustrate why having better thinking is so critical to change. The prefrontal cortex of the brain is, quote, the holding area where our working memory is stored. This is where we first compare ideas and perceptions to other information. It is highly energetic. It's a highly energetic part of our brain that supports higher intellectual functions such as creativity, innovation, decision-making, and is frequently engaged when we encounter something new. However, it can only store a small amount of information at any one time, and it also fatigues easily. Next, the basal ganglia are deeper in the core of the brain. They are stimulated by routine, familiar activities, forming and storing long-standing habits. The typical way people behave is rooted in the basal ganglia. In routine activities, the basal ganglia can function extremely well without conscious thought, such as riding a bike. Just starting with these two, let's look back at the process of learning to walk, taking in stimuli, pausing and increasing self-awareness, then putting what I'm noticing into practice, falling down, get new feedback and new stimuli, keep going and going, laying down new myelin until something clicks and I don't have to think about walking anymore. This is why it's so hard to change your walk or your gait. All right, next, the limbic system is traditionally thought of as the seat of emotions. It is loaded with cells that are responsible for our feelings and emotions, and it is responsible for the fight or flight response in stressful situations. Lastly, the nucleus accumbens is sometimes referred to as the pleasure center of the brain. It is involved in the release of dopamine in response to pleasurable experiences. So why do these two regions of the brain matter? Well, the nucleus accumbens releases dopamine when we're engaged in the work that leads to the accomplishment of our goals. Not when we accomplish the goals, but is released when we're engaged in the work that leads to the accomplishment of our goals. So it's the work itself that is rewarding. So it's more about the journey than the end results. With having that understanding of our brain's role in change, it makes sense that most behavior change programs don't work long-term and are not sustainable. It is because things are typically crammed in during a short period of time, and it's all about skills or the do part of the frame, not developing new thinking or seeing differently. In coaching, we address the gremlin, which for us means the part of our brain and thinking that wants immediate gratification and prefers status quo or not changing, even when we know status quo isn't serving us well. It's also usually our first thought. The beauty of knowing that the gremlin exists is once we become more aware of our thinking, the gremlin ceases to have the power and hold on us that it once did. So we can pause and ask ourselves, is this coming from my best thinking or is this coming from my gremlin? And all it actually takes is pausing 3 to 5 seconds to disable the dominance of the gremlin to create space for better thinking. What I can tell you is that 3 to 5 seconds will often feel like an eternity to your gremlin. So gotta love this quote here, the chief cause for failure and unhappiness is trading what we want most for what we want now. All right, moving on. And the reality is that if we want to make any lasting changes in our lives, we have to disrupt the ineffective thinking that got us into our current state in the first place. All right, now that we also have a framework on the importance of thinking, let's explore how coaching fits into this picture. The word coach dates back to the 13th century and comes from a little village in Hungary. The village name was spelled K-O-C, and they pronounced that village's name as coach. The people in this town built stage carriages, which they referred to as coaches. A coach is a vehicle that moves people from where they are to where they want to be. It provides the support, but you are in the driver's seat. Most people think of a professional coach in a similar way, as someone who supports them getting to another level. Coaches elicit. We don't tell. Coaches are also trained to listen to you fully. As a result of their listening, will ask you powerful questions that are designed to make you stop, pause, 3 to 5 seconds, perhaps, and get you to think about yourself, your situation, and where you're headed. Most of the time, it's our thinking about our choices that gets in our way. So coaches are trained to help you bring better thinking into your life so you can create results that are important to you. Coaching stems from a very different paradigm than we usually think about when it comes to health and well-being. The first paradigm is helping. Although we mean well when we say to someone, "Can I help you?" we are implying, in fact, that they are weak, that they don't have enough knowledge. It's kind of sitting in this place of, yeah, I know what's best for you. The next paradigm is fixing. This is basically saying you're broken, doing it incorrectly, or you need to change, etc. Again, stemming from a framework of, I know what's best for you. Differently, coaching comes from the paradigm of serving. From this paradigm, your coach recognizes that you are whole and complete and have valuable gifts, etc. Essentially, you know what's best for you, and I, as your coach, support and serve you in making that a reality. All right. Coaching also takes a slightly different perspective when it comes to typical health goals. As you look at this list, I invite you to think about whether these statements are goals. My guess is many of you said yes, but this is another difference of coaching. From a coaching perspective, all of the statements on the previous slide are what we would call strategies. Strategies that you are hoping will provide you with something. They are in the doing box of the frame we went over earlier. We support our clients in backing up to the seeing box and clarifying what that something is they're wanting, because that is your true goal or your purpose. For example, let's say you want to lose weight. What are you wanting for yourself with regards to weight loss? More confidence, feeling better in your clothes, more energy. After some support in exploring this, let's say you decide it's really about your energy. Well, now that you have that clarity, it's easier to bring that clarity into your life to let it guide your choices, because there are many things and behaviors that can impact your energy. So in Can Do, your coach helps you gain clarity about what your true goal is, and then creates a space for you to find better thinking. And that's a great transition into exploring in more detail how Can Do health coaching fits into this whole picture. Probably not surprising, we take a different approach, focusing first on self-awareness and shifting thinking so you can gain clarity about what you're wanting for yourself, and then have that clarity inform your do of the frame and your choices. I'll talk more about our various well-being tracks in a moment, but the big difference with Can Do Health Coaching is that while people enroll in a specific well-being track, we coach the whole person, regardless of what brings you to us. We recognize you are more than your well-being topic or your health state. You are instead a whole, complex being, so we support you in that way, focusing first and foremost on helping you recognize when your thinking is and isn't serving you well, and how to bring forward better thinking so you can create results that are important to you in all areas of well-being. So focusing on sustainability first and foremost involves attitude, bringing more effective thinking into your life. We also focus on appetite and activity and how all three interrelate to your total well-being. By starting with changing attitudes, we find people say that thinking differently helps them in a variety of areas, from viewing food and movement as powerful sources of energy versus a necessary evil to meet a weight goal, to having self-compassion and embracing what it means to be human. And shifting your attitude or thinking starts with creating space to hit the pause button and become more self-aware. We know that we have to be self-aware before we can make intentional, thoughtful change. And we have to be self-aware of our own thinking in order to be on the learner path. And the more you engage in better thinking, learner, path, or above-the-line thinking, the more fully you are experiencing your life. In moments of decision-making, what you know isn't enough. You have to call on more and what you know and want for yourself. So the goal of working with a can-do health coach is to know yourself at a different level and be the full expression of your full potential of what matters to you, not to change yourself to meet some external idea. So you can look in the mirror, so to speak, like Billy Williams here, and have new insights and excitement to help move you forward on your well-being journey. These are the 5 well-being tracks you can choose from to enroll in Can-Do coaching services. For each track, we have a wide variety of evidence-based, high-quality resources, handouts, homework exercises, and more that we may provide throughout your coaching engagement in the areas listed on the slide to support your well-being journey. Again, while you enroll in a specific track, we ultimately coach you, not the topic, because life is messy. We want you to be able to make better decisions regardless of what life throws at you, not to try to rearrange your life to meet some program requirements. Your coach will work with you and provide information and additional support at a pace that makes sense for you. That said, I want to spend a few minutes giving you a little more detail on the specifics of each track. When you enroll in Can-Do, you complete a short survey that will vary slightly based on the track you choose. You will also be asked to complete a short follow-up survey and 6 months and again at 12 months so we can see how your Can-Do health coaching journey has impacted you. One of the areas of consistency across tracks is what we call the Can-Do 7. We ask you to rate yourself in the 7 areas of well-being listed on the scale on this slide from the scale of 1 to 10, 1 being low or poor and 10 being high or excellent. And that regardless of your track, we support you as a whole person, recognizing how everything is interrelated and interacts. In our Manage Your Weight track, we support clients who are wanting to lose weight, but as you can imagine, we take a different approach, one that's sustainable. We know that diets work in the short term, but we also know that 95% of these people who go on diets regain their weight and more. We support our clients in getting out of diet head and focusing on the weight, and instead looking at the choices that they make so they can make lifelong changes. For those who want it, we have them complete a food diary, and then we create an individualized food plan for them. This food plan is really more to be used as a guideline to support making better choices. We base the food plan off a total caloric intake that supports a safe weight loss of 10% over the course of 6 months. But we don't want people counting calories, so the food plan is based off of serving sizes and learning to identify what foods work and don't work for you. The overarching principle we encourage throughout this is becoming more of a mindful eater. So you're creating a healthy relationship with food instead of the self-blame, good food, bad food mentality that isn't productive or sustainable. We also can work with clients to create an individualized physical activity plan and look at movement in a more balanced and holistic way. Most of our clients lose weight, but what they gain is far more profound. They realize most of the time it's not about the weight. The weight has been a symptom of other issues. With that, many report having a better relationship with themselves and with food, having more energy, more confidence, and creating healthier habits that they feel they can sustain for a lifetime. We know that when thinking, eating, and physical activity habits improve, weight will eventually normalize for you. We know that we are living in increasingly stressful times. And stress actually shuts down our higher level brain functioning, leading to below the line or judger path thinking. So it becomes even more important to be aware of when your thinking is and isn't serving you well, and build skills to become more resilient so you can thrive in the face of uncertainty and change. In our Manage Your Stress, Build Resiliency track, we have clients complete a time inventory exercise and an energy drainers exercise. These are kind of like the food diary as a get real challenge to recognize where your time goes and how much time is sucked up by things that drain your energy. We also have many introspective and interactive exercises we use to support clients in shifting their perspective so they can get back into the driver's seat of their life and create balance that works for them. For people who may not want or need to change their weight but simply want to eat better or improve their physical activity habits and live a healthier life, we have our Explore Healthier Living track. Again, we help people first become more aware of their thinking, of when it is and isn't serving them, and how that can get in their way when trying to live a healthier life. Similar to the Manage Your Weight track, we can also support clients by having them complete a food diary. From there, we create an individualized food plan that, again, is really more to be used as a guideline to support making better choices. Instead of picking a total caloric intake that supports weight loss, in this track we base the plan off of weight maintenance or whatever your goals are. And again, use serving sizes and learning to identify foods that work and don't work for you, the functional role food plays in our body. Again, the overarching principle we encourage throughout this is becoming more of a mindful eater instead of eating for convenience, comfort, or other reasons. We also can work with clients in this track to create and tweak an activity plan that looks at movement holistically, which I'll talk more about next. As I describe these four individuals, I invite you to decide which person best describes you. William the Weekend Warrior, pretty sedentary all week and then is very active, exercising on the weekend, playing sports, going to the gym, doing 5Ks, etc. Next, Olivia on the go, formally exercises during the week and weekend, probably works out 3 to 5 times a week. Also on the go regularly throughout the day, taking walking breaks, parking farther away in the parking lot, running errands, maybe has a standing workstation. And then there's sedentary Sally, doesn't do formal exercise and really doesn't move much at home or at work, sits most of the day. Then lastly, Frank the Fidgeter, doesn't really do formal exercise but can never really sit still, always moving around fidgeting. He's the guy you'd have to duct tape to his chair to get him to stay there. On the vertical axis is EAT. EAT stands for exercise activity thermogenesis, or what we typically think of for structured or traditional exercise. On the horizontal axis is NEAT, which stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which are more of the daily living tasks and general movement throughout our day when we're not exercising. What we know from research is that you can perform EAT, go to the gym for an hour, for example, but if you're sedentary the rest of the day, it basically negates the benefits of that exercise session. So we encourage our clients to look at movement more holistically, to have both NEAT and EAT activity intentionally built into their day. We have them complete an activity log to become more aware of their NEAT and EAT activity, and then look at intentionally balancing both in their lives in a way that they can view movement and activity as enjoyable. Again, if you view movement and physical activity as something torturous or a necessary evil, you're not likely to build that into your daily life. So shifting your thinking about it can make many times a big difference. All right, next, we also know that a growing number of people have chronic health conditions, but we know that you can live a life you love in spite of having an ongoing health condition. In this track, regardless of your health condition, we support you in learning to accept your condition and reframe how you view your health and well-being. Using introspective exercises and listening and questioning designed to support you in finding your best thinking, we help create a framework for you to be able to make better choices to effectively manage your condition, as well as reduce chronic inflammation and stress, and communicate even more effectively with your healthcare team. And finally, our coaches are trained tobacco treatment specialists with the Mayo Clinic. Not surprising, we take a more holistic approach to supporting people in quitting tobacco. We help clients gain greater awareness of what they're wanting from being tobacco-free and the thinking that guides their choices, so they can move beyond willpower to making choices that make more sense in living a tobacco-free life. Successfully quitting tobacco requires making better choices. However, that is difficult to do when your physical body is dealing with cravings and nicotine withdrawal. So we work with clients to identify what nicotine replacement therapy will work best for them, set a quit date, and support them throughout the entire process. And since stress is a leading trigger for using tobacco, we then incorporate aspects of our Manage Your Stress track that I just reviewed to help support finding other ways besides tobacco to cope with life's changes. So at the end of the day, whatever track you choose, we support the whole you, and it's about bringing better thinking into your life, not trying to achieve perfection. Because perfection is really a myth, and we're all beautifully human. Once you select and enroll in a track, this is what a typical health coaching engagement looks like with us. It's all about you. Your coach will bring forward various tools, resources, and exercises as needed based on where you're at on your well-being journey. But nothing is cookie cutter. It's not content or program focused, it's person focused. During the 6 months, you get 3 in-person one-on-one sessions with your coach listed here, initial, then at the midpoint, 3-month point, and then at the 6-month point. In between all of that is phone coaching, scheduled phone coaching every 2 weeks. And also during the 6 months, once per month, by email, we send you monthly reflections, which have about 6 questions in them that are designed to support you to reflect on the last month, where you've been, what's worked, challenges you may have experienced, what wisdom you're gaining out of that, and what you're wanting moving forward. And then after the 6 months, you also have access to optional once per month phone coaching from months 7 to 12. Note that the schedule varies a bit for the Become Tobacco Free track as we increase the frequency of sessions to provide extra support around the quit date. All right. If you're wondering who can benefit from Can-Do Health Coaching, it's basically everyone. The fee is $350 for the 6 months of coaching, which is a bargain because you'd pay more than that for 1 month of coaching with a life coach. It's also about the price of around 2.5 lattes per week at a coffee house over the course of 6 months. We also do accept payment plans as well. After today's webinar, you'll receive a link to complete a survey. After you complete it, you will receive a coupon code that will give you $50 off the fee if you enroll within 2 weeks of today. For Fairview employees or family members with certain Preferred One plans, you may be eligible for up to 100% reimbursement after completing 80% or 5 months of coaching. And if you're a patient or employee of a Fairview Health Network clinic, you can actually participate for only $200. We verify your clinic's eligibility when you call to arrange your payment. As we wrap up today, I want to leave you with a little better sense of the benefits and results our clients experience. After the midpoint in-person session, so around 3 months, we ask you to complete a short survey asking about frequency of sessions, length of sessions, and other items related to the structure. We also ask how satisfied you are. As you can see, 100% of our clients at the midpoint are satisfied or very satisfied with our coaching. And we know it's important for people to feel like they're making progress and see results for whatever it is they're wanting from their coaching experience. At the 3-month mark, almost 90% of our clients report they are seeing progress. Once they've completed the full 6 months, 100% of our clients are very satisfied with their coach. So what are some of the results people are seeing? Well, this looks at the various ways Can-Do has helped our clients. Probably not surprising, 100% of our clients report they are paying more attention to their thinking. 83% report having greater clarity in their thinking. 67% report they are focusing more on goals that are important to them. And 50% report they're making better choices, more capable of addressing what is important to them, and are seeing improvements in both their work and personal relationships. One of the assessments we have people complete 4 times throughout their Can-Do journey is something we call a life balance wheel. You see there are multiple areas of well-being that make up the wheel. We ask people to draw a new perimeter for the wheel by drawing a new arc in each section that represents their level of satisfaction with each area. The premise behind the life balance wheel is that if you think about a wheel, the larger and more circular or fuller the wheel is, the greater ease you'll move forward. It will move forward. A wheel that looks more like this one, or an amoeba, will also move forward, but the ride will be a bumpier ride. This is a standard tool in coaching, but we want to make sure it's valuable for our clients, so we ask them how helpful the life balance wheel has been for them. As you can see, everyone finds them useful, with most people finding these assessments very useful and about a third finding them at least somewhat useful. So how does life balance or the smoothness of the ride look after 6 months of Can-Do coaching? This is a composite of the averages from our clients. As you can see, although people come to us for a variety of reasons, a common thread is they feel more balanced in overall well-being and find a greater sense of peace and balance in their lives. But perhaps nothing is as telling as what some of our clients have said with regards to their experience. These quotes are from clients who were in our Manage Your Weight track. And what you see is they finally get that it's not about the do, the scale, the food, the weight, or other typical strategies, approaches. Instead, they realize it's about their thinking and how that translates into every choice that they make. These quotes are from our Explore Healthier Living and Living Well with a Chronic Condition tracks. As you can see here, people walk away with a whole new perspective of themselves, their health, and well-being. And these come from our Manage, Stress, Become Tobacco-Free tracks. As you see, there's lots of overlap regardless of the track, but the common theme is that people are valuing and seeing themselves differently and therefore shifting their thinking and shifting their choices they make. So hopefully that gives you a greater sense of what CAN-DO is all about. With that, the formal part of our presentation will come to a close, and we have some time for questions and answers. But I would be remiss if I didn't end with this question, and you can type your answers in the box. I would love to hear from some of you what is opening up for you and what you're taking away from our time together today. And also, is there more that you're wanting to know regarding CAN-DO health coaching?
Great. Well, thank you, Cheryl. So now we'll take a few minutes for questions or comments, feedback on today's presentation. If you have a question for Cheryl, please type it in the question area of the control panel. Okay, our first question is, I'm not sure if health coaching is right for me. Can I try it out before I commit to 6 months of coaching?
Thank you. That's actually a great question. Yes, you can. We have what are called test drive phone coaching sessions. You can go to our website and request a test drive. We then contact you to find about a half-hour time slot on your calendar and ours where we can have that test drive phone coaching session. We usually take about the first 15 or so minutes of it kind of introducing, going over what phone coaching is, what that looks like, so you can have a better idea of what to expect. And then you'll actually experience about 10 to 15 minutes of coaching, so you can get a better idea to see if this is a right fit for you. Thank you.
Okay, we've got one more question here. What if I start a track but then realize I want to work on something else?
And again, I think that's a great question. People get concerned at times about, oh, which track to sign up for, and it really doesn't matter. You know, again, we've worked with many clients who might sign up for the weight loss, the manage your weight track. But during the 6 months, they're going through lots of stressful times. We will pull resources from the stress management track based on where they're at. So in essence, it almost doesn't matter. I would say where it probably matters the most is if you know that you want to quit smoking, that's pretty specific to enroll in that one, and yet we will use resources from our Explore Healthier Living or weight management track as applicable or as indicated by what the client wants. So it's very fluid. It's not track focused or topic focused, it's really person focused. We've got a lot of resources and we use them as issues arise for the person. Thank you.
All right, well that looks like it concludes our questions for today. So on behalf of Cheryl and the CAN-DO team, we want to thank you again for joining us for today's webinar. If you like what you learned today and are ready to start CAN-DO Health Coaching, look for the enrollment link in the follow-up email which you'll be receiving shortly. Please join us for our next special topic webinar, Forget Diets, Manage Weight in a Sustainable Way, which will be held on Tuesday, February 24th at noon. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great weekend.